In this video, we're going to take a look at nested for loops. A nested for loop is just a for loop inside of another for loop. But first, let's just review a very basic for loop. So here I have a for loop. It says make a variable y and begin y at 1. And then it says keep going, keep repeating as long as this is true, as long as y is less than 5. Sometimes students get this mixed up. Sometimes they would write even something like this. Keep going until y is equal to 5. No, that's not how you read this. The statement that you put here says keep going as long as this is true, right? Start y at 1, keep going as long as y is less than 5, and then y plus plus. Again, this is the shortcut way of writing y equals y plus 1. Really, it just means add 1 to y after every time through the loop. Of course, the other way to write this is, I know there's 3 ways to write this. Y plus equals 1. This also means y equals y plus 1, but I'm just going to write it as y plus plus. And of course, I'm going to run this thing. No big surprise. I'm using alert statements here. It says count equals 1, count equals 2, count equals 3, count equals 4. That's it. Right? Keep going as long as y is less than 5, so it never actually says count equals 5. This really should make total sense to you. If it doesn't, maybe go back and relook at the first for loops basic video, because we're going to move on a little bit. Now, I've modified this code just slightly. This line right here, line number 9, instead of using an alert statement, I want my output to go to the document. So I'm using my document.getElementById, and my output is named out. And of course, you know how that works. And I'm printing out the answer. So what's happening here is I'm taking answer plus equals. That means answer equals answer plus count plus the value of y, and this is a line break at the end. So when I run this, hey, same thing. Count equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, same as we had before. All right, now let's make this a nested for loop. So now we're looking at a nested for loop. So hopefully you could see what I did. This was my original for loop. Now the only thing I changed in here is instead of writing count, I'm calling this y because I'm printing out the value of y. And this for loop I put inside of another for loop. So here's my other for loop. And if you make a nested for loop, you have to use different variable names. My outer for loop, I'm using the variable x. My inner for loop, I'm using the variable y. I cannot use x or I cannot use y for both of these for loops. It'll get all messed up. So my outer for loop is running for x values starting at 1, less than or equal to 4. So my outer for loop is going to repeat 3 times, right? X is going to be 1, then x is going to be 2, then x is going to be 3. Now, each time I get a new value of x, the inside for loop runs from beginning to end. So in other words, x equals 1. The inside for loop is going to run for y values 1 through 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then the next value of x is 2. And then the inside for loop runs again from beginning to end. Then the outer for loop increments again to 3 and so forth. So if I run this thing, you will see that it tells me y equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? The inside for loop ran from beginning to end 3 times. Interesting. All right, I'm going to make a couple more changes. In this example, I added just one more line of code, this line right here. Now, all I'm doing in this line of code, now notice it's in between the outer for loop and inner for loop. All I'm doing is I'm adding to answer another line break, x equals, then the value of x, and then another line break. So it should tell me the value of x each time before it runs the inside for loop. I hope you're thinking about what the output is. I'm going to run it. And of course, it tells me x equals 1, and then my inside for loop is running from beginning to end. Y value is 1, 2, 3, 4, x equals 2. My inside for loop runs from beginning to end again, x equals 3, and so forth. I'm going to stop here for just a moment. Give this some thought. Really think it through on your own. You really need to understand this example. This is a basic nested for loop. All right, you got it? We're moving on. Let's look at just one last example here. Now I made a little minor adjustment. This time my inner for loop is going from the values 1, right, for y equals 1, as long as y is less than or equal to x. Well, that's interesting. Y plus plus. Give this one some thought, maybe even pause the video before I run it. Think about what the output would be. You got it? All right, I'm going to run it, and that is my output. Hopefully that makes sense. X equals 1, okay, so it prints out the value of x, and then my inner for loop is just running from 1 up to 1, okay, so that's why it says x is 1 and y is running up to 1. Then it gets the next value of the outer for loop, now x is 2, prints out the value of x again, and the inside for loop says repeat starting at the y value 1, keep going as long as y is less than or equal to x. X is now 2, of course, so the inner for loop runs 1, 2. And then the third time through, x is 3, and you can see the inner for loop runs for the y values 1, 2, 3. All right, nested for loops can be a little bit confusing. Maybe watch this video more than once. I'm going to put this replit right in the document. Maybe play around with this, change around some values and see what the output is. So hopefully this all makes sense to you, and thanks so much for watching.